another level 7. Any tips for decks in Arena 3? I don't have dragons. Yeah, so kind of depends on what epic or epics do you have. So usually you kind of just use like whatever your epic is, plus several things, right? So Giant is really strong in Arena 3. So Giant Musketeer, like basically through Arena 3 and 4, Giant Musketeer pretty much don't leave my deck. Because those two by themselves can take down a tower. Like if you play a Giant at the river and a Musketeer right behind him, and your opponent doesn't play anything, the whole tower just gets wrecked. And if they play poorly, or they play stuff you can counter, then it just lights it up. So let me go to one of my battle decks here and change a couple things out. What I would probably do here is, I don't know what your epic is. Let's say that it's Prince, right? Then this deck needs like one more change. Is it Archers? Is it Archers what's it needs? Because you shouldn't be seeing Barbs. Oh, you got Witch Prince, Skeleton Army, Balloon. So I would go with Prince in Arena 3 specifically. So when you get to Arena 4, it may have to change a little. But in Arena 3 specifically, I like Prince. Especially because he can be really nasty with Giant, right? So I probably look at something similar to this. I play on PC using a thing called BlueStacks, which is emulating like a Samsung Galaxy. So it thinks it's like a Nintendo emulator. If you've ever played like a Super Nintendo emulator or something like that, it's basically doing the same thing. And then it just uses your Google Play account, right? You're just logging into Google Play, and you get it there. Hey man, questions are where it's at, Kappa. So something like this is not terrible. That may be a little heavy. What you may actually want to do is something, maybe something more like this. And let me see if there's any other changes I want to make. Okay, so something like this. Oh, no sniping. So a deck like this in Arena 3, which I think these are all cards that you have. You should have all these cards. So let me just go through kind of each card and like what it does, right? So Goblins are your really good. I tried it, but when I clicked Android at the top, it said something like verifying nothing happened. Mine took me like a half hour to get set up. You may have to reinstall it. It was kind of a pain in the butt to get going, and then it finally worked. And it crashed like 10 times. I feel like every other time I open it to start my streaming day, it crashes. So with this deck, so Goblins are your DPS against when someone plays like a P.E.K.K.A. or like a Prince or like a Giant. Goblins are like your first line, right? They're cheap, they do a bunch of damage, and they distract stuff. But they're also good offensively, right? Like if you have a Giant across the bridge and they don't play anything big, you can play Goblins and they can run with him and they'll just wreck a tower. Skeleton Army is kind of the same way, right? If they drop like a Prince, or if they've got like a Prince P.E.K.K.A. coming in, or they drop a Giant, you drop Skeleton Army on top of it and it's dead. They'll probably use arrows, but it's going to be able to deal so much damage that it's going to get it really low. So it's also kind of a defensive card. I never really use it offensively, but that's not to say that it couldn't be, right? And a lot of times you'll drop it on a Giant, it'll kill the whole Giant, and then it starts to run across the bridge. And if you've already got like a card across the bridge, you know, it's going to do some work. So then Prince is like your win condition, right? So he's win condition number 1. So when you want to, you know, really push, you want to play the Prince. But the key is you never play a Prince by himself. So you never just put Prince at the river and let him run across, because he'll die every time. The funny thing with Prince is he can kill a tower by himself, but every single card in the game can counter him. And thank you for the follow, Dirt Life. So what you usually want to do is you can do something like you could play Goblins and then play the Prince behind him, so that whatever they drop, like the Goblins can kill and the Prince gets through. Or you can play your Giant and your Giant goes through, and then the Prince is behind him, and whatever like damage cards they play, like if they play goblins and musketeers and stuff, those all attack your giant, and then your prince just gets to go ham, right? He just goes hardcore in the paint. So he's really good, but never like leave him out by himself. If you just like drop a prince at river and let him run across, like you're just losing 5 elixir. They'll counter him every time. So then arrows are just defensive, right? So they play skeleton army, they play like a bunch of goblins, they play like minions. And if you run into spammer decks, they can be helpful. But it just basically is just killing all the small troops, which you see a lot of skeleton army in Arena 3. So it's really helpful because they're going to be playing skeleton army on like your giant and your prince, and so you want to be able to use arrows on those. So then fireball serves like 3 purposes. So the first purpose is for spawner decks. I'm guessing you're running into people playing like Goblin Hut. So fireball is really good if they play a Goblin Hut like right next to their castle. Then you can shoot a fireball so that it hits the Goblin Hut and the castle. So that's the first thing that's really good at. The second that it's good at is killing big groups of troops. So like if they play barbarians, or if they play like a witch and a musketeer right next to each other, all of those are like really good targets for fireball. They'll all just blow up. It just does a ton of damage, right? Like my fireball does like 430 damage, which will almost one-shot barbs. It'll really hurt a witch. It'll really hurt musketeers, and then your troops just clean them up. So you can get like really big trades with fireball. The giant is like win condition number 2. Right, so if your prince fails, your giant goes across. Everybody attacks the giant, and all your troops behind him just kill everything. Giant with a prince behind it, or giant with a musketeer behind it, is really good. And then the archers are both defense and offense, right? So most of my games, I start the very beginning of the game. I wait till I get 10 elixir, and then I'll play either archers or musketeer, like at my very back castle, and they'll go up, and if they play something, they'll just sit there and just shoot stuff in the face, or if they don't, then I'll just play a giant in front of them, and then the giant will walk across, and the archers will walk behind it, and they'll kill everything. So really, really good, just all-around card, and they're pretty cheap. And then the musketeer is honestly one of my favorite cards in the game, because she is really good at countering a lot of stuff. She directly counters baby dragon. She'll wreck a baby dragon. She's good at killing witch as well. She's a really strong counter to witch. And then, if they play, any, goblins or spear goblins, any of that stuff, she kills that stuff. And then she goes on offense, right? I play her behind the tower. She gets walking up. She shoots all their guys in the face. You drop a giant in front of her. Giant walks across. And then the frickin' musketeer will just kill the tower really fast. Like mine does 120 damage a shot at level 3, so yours probably around there. And so, and she can usually, if she's by herself and it's just a tower and her, she can get 4 shots on a tower. So that's 500 damage. If she has a giant in front of her who also does 150 damage, the 2 of them will just shred a tower. And she also plays a good protector to prince as well. If you have a prince going through, and like if you played a musketeer behind your tower and she's in front now, you could drop a prince with her, and then when they drop goblins and stuff, she'll shoot all of the goblins, and then the prince is still free to go through. So really powerful as well. So this is a deck that I played something very similar through Arena 3, and I think I may have... I have my exact deck that I played to get to Arena 4. Down just below my stream, it says Clash Royale climbing deck. That's the exact deck I had, but I had Baby Dragon. That was my starting epic. So it was kind of a deck a little more tuned around that. What's up, Levhurth? How's it going, man? I'm trying to install Clash on PC, but it just says installing and nothing's happening. Yeah, it could just... I mean, I'm not kidding. To get Clash Royale onto BlueStacks, I think I had to restart. Like I know I uninstalled BlueStacks once, and then I tried it again, and it just took a really long time. It was kind of laggy, and so you may try like reinstalling BlueStacks. You may try I don't know, like just like restarting your PC and then trying again. That may help. I noticed BlueStacks is a little bit buggy, so it's kind of hit or miss. But hopefully you can get it to work. But yeah, so this is a pretty good deck. I'd recommend it to anybody in Arena 3. If you don't have Skeleton Army, then I would probably substitute later Skeleton Army. When you get into Arena 4, Skeleton Army becomes Barbarians. So as soon as you can switch this out for like level 3 Barbarians, it's ideal. If somebody didn't have either, then I would probably play like, I don't know, I'd probably play Mini P.E.K.K.A. just because it does a ton of damage and it can take down giants and stuff. So this is the other way that you can go to. If you happen to have like an abnormally high leveled Mini P.E.K.K.A. compared to your other cards too, then this is the other way that you can go. Oh, if you should use Barbs here then. Yeah, so if you have Barbs, if you have level 5 Barbs, this is the deck that I would go with instead. I wasn't sure if you had them or if they were just level 1, so because I don't remember when they unlocked. But this Barbs are a lot stronger than Skeleton Army because they can push really well. So yeah, if you have all of these cards, I would try putting this deck together, and then I would just recommend playing kind of conservatively. In that, like, don't be the one to don't play your cards right at the river and try to start attacking. Play some cards back behind your tower defensively. So any of these 3 cards here can be played behind your main castle defensively, and then as they play stuff, counter it, and then you get like this big wave of mobs going, right? So, you know, if you play archers behind your castle, and then they play, you know, like a prince or a P.E.K.K.A., then you can play your Barbs on top of theirs, and then you're going to kill that, and now you've got a group of Barbs, and you've got archers, and you basically have all your troops, and then you cross river, right? And then you can use your fireball to counter whatever they play, right? So your Barbs get across river, and they drop like a witch or their own Barbs. You could shoot a fireball at it. You'll wipe out all that stuff. Your Barbs and archers are still pretty much full health, and they're like almost out of elixir, and so you can get like really strong pushes that way. So I recommend something like this. You could try it out, and if you're having any troubles with it, try to keep track of like what you're having problems with. Like if you keep getting beat by specific cards, like those are the only cards you seem to be losing to, then you can kind of tweak it further and you just kind of add counters. So this should be kind of like a catch-all counter. There'll be some decks like this will still do good against Balloon. So this should counter most everything. But if there are certain things that you're just getting crushed by, then you can, you know, swing back in and let me know, and we can make some tweaks and stuff. But yeah, the really big thing will be like elixir advantage and doing a lot of that stuff too.